Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Undomesticated podcast. We took a little bit of a break last week. We had crazy life stuff going on from my kid's birthday and Easter to your kid's birthday, a wedding out of town. It was just a lot. We really are working our butts off to try and get this to a broader reach.
Mhm.
But sometimes you have to just check in with your mental health and take a little break. So we did that, and we are refreshed and renewed to come back at you with a good ending to our series, Marriage
Yes.
Unfiltered.
Yes. Refreshed, renewed, ready to tackle kind of a heavy subject. And thank you to those of you who reached out and said you
Yeah.
were bummed that we didn't release an episode last week. It was a hard call for us to make, but it felt really good to know that there are those of you who are waking up on Wednesday morning ready to listen
Yeah.
to our voices
It feels so
on your
good.
way to work.
Sometimes it can be discouraging
Mhm.
when you just stare at download numbers,
Right.
all day. And we had to really take the last week to just be happy and content with where we are and the way that we're connecting to women who genuinely want to hear us and are happy to hear us. And it just meant a lot. It means a lot for you guys to support us and keep our spirits up.
This week we are continuing with Marriage Unfiltered.
Hmm.
Episode 4, we covered a little bit about our backgrounds, who our husbands are, what kind of dynamic we have in our relationships, and the things that we think have contributed to our success so far. Neither one of us are salty old marriage veterans by any
No.
stretch of the imagination, but we've been in it for a good length of time, and
Yeah.
we've both been through some
Mountains and valleys.
serious challenges.
With many more mountains and valleys to come.
Oh, yes, yes,
So,
many more to come. So we also shared some advice from people who have been married far longer
yeah.
than we have on last week's episode. So if you haven't seen that, go back, watch episode 4 before you come back and listen to this episode, because this is part 2
Yep.
of our marriage series. And this week we're going to get into some advice. But first, we're going to start off with a little story from
Yeah.
Kelsey, because, at some point we've all wondered, who the bleep did I marry?
Amen. So I in my free time, I am a TikTok scroller. And what I mean by that is it might as well be my full-time job because I get sucked in. So, on TikTok one night, I got hit with this beautiful woman named Risa Tisa, and she had a 52-part series of Who the Bleep Did I Marry? And it was the most outrageous, insane story I've ever heard in my life. And a perfect example of why you need to always do a background check on your mans. Okay?
Know for sure who you're walking
Mm-mm.
down the aisle.
We got access to CaseNet.
Mm-hmm.
Look that up. Background check it. Talk to his mama.
Ask for references
Ask for
with this.
reference. Okay, so what I did for you lovely people, because this story was so fascinating, is I created the Cliff Note version of Risa Tisa's 52-part series.
I'm excited.
Okay, so Risa Tisa met her husband, his name is Legion, in March of 2020.
Red
2
flag right
weeks.
there. I mean,
I,
biblically speaking,
I
bad
don't know
news.
that. I need to read the Bible again before I tackle this.
The demon, the legion of demons that possessed the guy, and Jesus cast it out into the pigs.
Okay, so there's a reason why his name's Legion, because I'll tell you more.
Yeah, he said our name is Legion, for we are many,
Oh,
is what the demon
scary.
said in the Bible. Yeah.
All right. Well, there's also a Bible lesson for you guys.
Yep.
So, okay, so
Look it
here
up.
we go. Risa Tisa met Legion 2 weeks before the COVID lockdown. They met online, they talked a little bit, and they decided to go out. She had a blowout on her tire, not in her diaper, on the way to the date. He helped her with her tire. He stopped and helped her and
Mm-hmm.
paid for everything. They talked, they hit it off. They got along so well that by the time the shutdown came, they moved very quickly and they decided they would move into her home because he only had a studio apartment.
Gotcha.
He paid for everything except her car note, her insurance, and her phone bill. She was happy because obviously she'd
Mm-hmm.
never had a man step up like that.
Yeah, he's taking care of her, taking the lead.
And As time went on, they were ready to buy a house, and he was kind of acting sketchy about it, and he would say, "Okay, I'm gonna put a cash offer down." "Oh, there's something wrong with the realtor." The
Mhm.
realtor's sending her emails telling her about these deals or whatever. Eventually, no deal ever came through,
Mhm.
okay? Then he's on the phone every day with his brother, and they talk for an hour a day. He says
Mhm.
they're very, very close.
Mhm.
Things are getting weird. She's starting to suspect
Sure.
things. She found him messaging women on Facebook. She found out that his ex stepdaughter passed away. He told her she passed away from COVID and the family needed $2,000 for the
Mhm.
funeral. She gave them $2,000, obviously, only to find out later that the daughter was totally fine and they had no contact with Legion. She also goes on to find out that this man has two siblings. One, his twin, is an executive with a BMW, a high powered job,
Mhm.
and multiple children. And he's been using that story to all the women that he's been trying to
Oh,
get with.
no.
The other brother, John, the one he claims he talks to on the phone for an hour a night, has not spoken to him since 2015.
Oh my gosh.
So he's been pretending to talk to someone for an hour every day.
Spending an hour of his day playing pretend.
And like, for what?
Right.
So then she goes on to find out that he's been married twice. Both times the women have had to result in getting restraining or protective orders against him.
Oh my gosh.
And she also found out he's using a fake social security number. She looked into, everything he claimed. He claimed he went to college. He claimed he
Mhm.
was in this fraternity. He claimed he was a football player. He claimed he was working at Apple. Like, just the craziest stuff.
Sure.
She goes to find out, number one, he's never been a resident of California.
Mhm.
He's never worked for Apple. He has never been to college. And she found out that his actual job was a temp forklift driver.
Really. Like,
Really?
not even close to what he's representing.
Right. So later on, once she delves into all this and she's ready to get the heck out of there, she finds out that the realtor that was emailing her was him. She finds out that the attorney that, he's threatening her with was him. Obviously, the brother he's talking to for an hour was him. All the different people dying or
Oh
needing
my
money
gosh. All him.
was him. I mean, they were married. They had to go through all this. So now they're over. She is getting like a million views on each video, and it's a
Sure.
52-part series.
Right.
Like, she's rolling in the dough right now.
Right.
She comes with proof, screenshots, receipts.
Yes.
So here's another just prime example of being safe, taking the person that you're dating very
Mhm.
seriously, taking it slow, and also in true form of Risa Tisa, when things hit the fan, you just still count your money. You
Yeah.
still make your bread
Right. After you hightail it out of there.
and take him for the
Mhm.
pennies that he's worth.
Right. And that's not to say there might be somebody that comes and sweeps you off your feet, but you owe it to yourself to be safe
Right.
and to make sure you are giving it time.
Yep.
Because I think I shared last week, Matt told me on like our second or third date that he was going to marry me. And I was down with that.
Yeah.
It was still 2 years before we got engaged.
I have no leg to stand on. I got pregnant after dating Michael for 5 months,
Right.
and we moved in together within, like, 3
Mhm.
months, so
You guys are the exception, not the rule,
we
though.
are 100% the exception and not the rule, and if my daughters ever tried to do anything that I did,
Exactly.
it would be an immediate no for
Mhm.
me.
Yes, we have made it through it and we are stronger because of it. Would I recommend if you are 18 or 19 dating someone that's in their late 20s? No.
No. Would I recommend moving in with your boyfriend and getting pregnant within 5 months? Absolutely not.
No. One of my favorite things, and I think it's a Dave Ramsey quote, so all of you can send me hate mail if you want, but one of his things is divorce is 50-50.
Yeah?
Marriage is 100-100. And
I
it
like
has to be.
that.
And it doesn't mean that, oh my god, we're both killing ourselves every day to, like, see who can make the most sacrifices for the other.
I love you so much.
Right.
No, I
I
love
love
you
you
so
more.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, but it does mean that you are both always 100% committed
Yep.
to doing what it takes to make it work. So, and at some point all of us have been like, who the bleep did I marry?
Oh,
Like,
totally.
let's be real. So, if you're in that stage right now where you're like, who the F did I marry? assuming you are in a healthy, productive, committed relationship where you are both making an effort
And he's
right
not
now.
pretending to talk to his fake brother on the phone for an hour.
Right. You'll make it. And this
You really will.
episode is all about some things that
Success.
will help you navigate those who the F did I marry stages and just your normal everyday conflicts and conversations that'll help make things more productive and get to a resolution.
So these statistics we're excited to hear.
Yes.
And Kayla has been wonderful enough to find them for us.
Research is kind of what I do. I'm a spreadsheet nerd.
Yep.
So, as much as we liked the regulators last week and
It's
as
so
much fun
true.
as we had changing it up a little bit for Matt
Yeah.
on his
Did he
birthday
enjoy
week,
that?
he did. He thought it was pretty funny.
Oh, amazing.
He appreciated it. And for some background, that came up because when we first started the podcast, our intro is the part he hates the most.
Okay, Michael too.
And he was like, "You guys should be like regulators,
Mount
mount
up.
up." He said, "That's a podcast I would listen to."
Well,
So he does listen
newsflash,
every
Matt,
week.
you're forced to listen
Right.
anyway.
You're like, you and Michael are the two people who are obligated to
That's
listen to the
right.
podcast
2
every week.
guaranteed downloads.
So anyway, as much as we had fun with it, it just didn't feel like us.
Nope.
So without further ado, let's go, girls.
girls.
All right. Welcome back to episode 5, part 2 of our Marriage series. And this part is all about finding solutions and advice
Yep.
for navigating some of the challenges. Kelsey and I shared last week some of our disagreements and the way we've navigated challenges in the past, whether healthy or unhealthy, like the fact that both of us will follow you from room to room and then text you
Send
from
you a text.
behind a closed door when you
And it's
finally
about
get
a
ahead of me enough to close it.
13-page text.
Oh, yeah. Super long. I'm going to spell it all out.
Yeah. I'm going to say what I couldn't say without throwing multiple curse words at you.
Oh, 100%. If you're a newlywed, we do not recommend that method of conflict resolution, but we are all human. And
That's
we are
right.
not here to pretend we're perfect and have this whole resolution thing down to a science. We do not just sit down calmly at the kitchen table after the kids are in bed and go, we need to discuss a few things that have been on my mind lately. That's not,
No, that's not who we are.
it just doesn't happen. It's not who we are
We're
as
working on it.
people. So, what is the key to success
Mm-hmm.
in marriage? Not just from our perspective, but based on Doctors John and Julie Gottman's research that they have done on thousands of couples over the past 50 years and have really gotten it down to a science. I think you said last week Dr. Gottman can predict divorce 90%
90% of the time.
accuracy.
Yep.
So, the Gottmans have 16 what they say are proven ways
All right.
to
hit me
make
with
your
them.
relationship work. The
Sweet.
first one is a gentle startup. So don't come out hot. Don't come out while you're mad to talk about something. In the heat of an argument is not the time to decide we need to sit down and hash this out.
Oh.
Basically, it needs
Okay.
to be a gentle startup, not accusatory. And so that leads into using I statements. And basically what that means, and you may be able to fill in some here too,
Mm-hmm.
Kelsey, is when you sit down to talk to your spouse, don't come at them with, you do this to me.
Right.
It really needs to be, I feel
Yep.
insecure
Yep.
when we're having a conversation and you walk away from me or you go into another room and you close the door.
Right.
That makes me feel like my feelings aren't important
Yep.
and I haven't been able to talk through what's
Yep.
bothering me, and I resolve conflict and I need that closure to feel like we have talked about this
Yeah.
and we're in a good spot before I can go to bed.
Yeah.
The alternative is, and I think the natural way for us to enter conversations like that
Yeah.
is, you always walk away from me and you just abandon me in the middle of an argument, and you do that just to piss me off because
Right.
you know I hate that.
Right. And his response could very well be, when you yell at me, it brings up feelings from my childhood,
Mhm.
or it brings up feelings of fear, or it brings up feelings of intense anger, and I
Mhm.
need to remove myself to
Right.
not engage or to not let my emotions get out of control.
Right. I need time to process, and when you come at me like that and are demanding a response,
Right.
I feel like I don't have time to process what I'm feeling and be able to have a productive conversation with you in that moment.
Yep.
I
And
need
like
that space.
from our episode last week when we learned about stonewalling in men,
Mhm.
and they did a direct correlation to their heart rate.
Mhm.
Once their heart rate gets to a certain level, I think it's like over 102 beats per minute.
Mhm.
Once it raises over that, then their body is overstimulated and they shut down.
Mhm.
In our cases, they walk away or they
Right.
close the door. And at that point, there's nothing that can go through that wall.
Mhm.
There's nothing that can come to us from that wall.
Yes.
And then when we are stonewalled as women,
Mhm.
the majority of the emotional conversation come from women, as we learned last time.
Yes.
It's two heads hitting against each other.
Mhm.
There's no success. So when I'm saying, I feel like when you
Mhm.
walk away from me, it makes me feel abandoned. It makes me feel unheard. Just that understanding and being
Mhm.
able to go, when I say, I feel upset that you walk away from me. And he
Mhm.
could say, what I'm hearing you say is,
Mhm.
you feel abandoned or you
Right.
feel scared. And it just kind of gets deeper into it. Or when he
Mhm.
says, I feel that I'm worked up when you're yelling at me, and I can say, and
Mhm.
what I hear is that you need time to, whatever.
Right.
The way that you differentiate either I feel or I hear
Mhm.
can really go leaps and bounds
Right.
into conflict resolution. And that's
Yes.
why those two statements are so important.
And it takes practice. This is not something that
100%.
you're gonna sit down on day 1. It might be clumsy
Yep.
and weird and
Yep.
awkward, and you're gonna feel like this is the dumbest thing we've ever sat down and
Yes.
done, because it does feel very forced
Yep.
when you first start trying to do that to resolve conflict. And so, stonewalling, I think, is an important part to make because, like, to your point, there are 2 things to consider in
Hmm.
stonewalling. Reading directly from this article from Gottman on what they call the 4 horsemen, the
Yeah.
4 things that the majority of the time will lead to divorce if they go unchecked. Stonewalling is usually a response to contempt.
Hmm.
So the listener is withdrawing from the interaction, they're shutting down, they simply stop responding instead of confronting the issue.
Right.
But it takes time for the negativity created by the first 3 horsemen, particularly contempt, to become overwhelming enough that stonewalling
Stonewalling
starts.
happens.
So
Yeah.
this is a response to, and it may not be, if you're a newlywed and the first argument you have, your husband does this or you
Right.
do it. Most of the time it's men. So we're going to use men
85%.
statistically. Most of the time it's men. So we're going to use men for the sake of this example. It may not be you who did it, but I think it's important for us to be honest with ourselves and
Yep.
say, okay, am I coming at him too hot?
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I overwhelming him by throwing all of this stuff at him at once? And so he's shutting down. Now, maybe it's because he got that in childhood
Mhm.
or in college or as an adult or from a prior relationship, and that's just unresolved
Right.
issue. So now his default is if there's conflict, I shut down. But I think we owe it to ourselves
Yeah,
to self reflect.
and think about too, I mean, when I think about my first arguments with Michael, he was not stonewalling. In
Mhm.
fact, he was very combative,
Right.
and I was combative, and we were just mean,
Mhm.
just like young kids that
Right.
didn't know boundaries and were just
Just trying to
mean.
cut deep and get a
Right.
response.
Cutting deep, saying inappropriate things, and then eventually over time things had happened in our marriage
Mhm.
that we were both building up little bits of resentment
Mhm.
and little bits of contempt. And what was the other horseman?
So there's defensiveness, contempt, and criticism
Yeah.
are
And
the
we
other ones.
both were kind of newly living together and kind of nitpicking the little things that we
Mhm.
preferred. And eventually it came to where I'm going at him, combative,
Mhm.
no boundaries, all of this resentment. He had built up enough from the previous arguments we'd gotten into just completely stonewall.
Right.
And that's something that luckily we were
Mhm.
both open to talking about in therapy and working through and doing those I statements
Mhm.
because the four horsemen
Mhm.
whether it's one fight, whether it's 5 fights, whether it's 15 years of fights,
Mhm.
will create damage that
Yes.
is very, very hard to undo.
Absolutely. So Gottman goes on to say stonewalling isn't easy to stop,
Mhm.
but it's a result of feeling physiologically flooded.
Yeah.
And I like that term because it paints a very vivid picture. Like,
Yeah.
think of your toddler when they're so overstimulated that they are running around like they snorted an illegal substance.
So true.
And you were like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Their little bodies are just so physiologically flooded
Yes.
that they don't know how to process it. And so he says when we stonewall, we may not even be in a physiological state where we are capable of discussing things rationally. So the stonewaller is so overstimulated,
Mhm.
essentially, is what Gottman's saying here, that they cannot process this conversation right now.
Yep.
I cannot think through this conflict and have a rational conversation that's going to
Mhm.
get us anywhere, so I'm gonna withdraw because I need for
Right.
all of this stimuli to chill out.
Yeah.
It does say if you are the stonewaller, if you feel yourself and you identify that mid
Mhm.
argument, and again, this is something that takes practice.
Yep.
But if you recognize in an argument that you are doing this, you
Yep.
are stonewalling, is to stop the discussion and ask your partner to take a break. And then Gottman gives you some suggested verbiage. So we'll put this article, the Four Horsemen article, in our show notes because it does have some really good like sample verbiage
Yeah.
that you can kind of practice and make your own if these are
Sweet.
things you struggle with. So for this, for stonewalling, he says, all right, I am feeling too angry to keep talking about this.
Mhm.
Can we please take a break and come back to it in a bit? It'll be easier to work through after I've calmed down.
I like that.
So you're acknowledging your partner's need to talk about this.
Yep.
I am not saying we're not going to talk about it, but I am telling you I cannot talk about this in a way that's going to be productive right now.
Totally.
I need a break.
And from a person that doesn't do that, it's
Mhm.
going to be frustrating
Yes.
because we don't understand that.
So even outside of a romantic relationship, my boss and the people who work with me could tell you I process out loud. For
Yeah.
me to find a solution to whatever problem is at hand, I am much better at doing that if I can sit down with you and we can just brainstorm it.
Yep. Yep.
And some people need to process in silence versus people like you and I who are like the only way for me to resolve this is we need to talk it
I need to,
out
yeah.
until I feel like we have reached
Yep.
a reasonable conclusion.
And let me go ahead and say this too. Stonewalling is not okay. We're not making
No.
excuses for
No.
stonewalling. But what is okay is accepting and acknowledging that you're overwhelmed
Yes,
and
I
that
need
you
a
need
break.
to step away.
Yes.
Now, when you're not acknowledging that and you're not seeing that
Mhm.
that the stonewalling is a problem, that is when there's a real issue.
Yes.
When you are refusing to acknowledge what's happening in your body and in your mind in
Mhm.
order to make communication with your partner
Mhm.
better.
Yes. So that kind of leads us into some of these other proven ways to make your relationship work. The next one is complain without blame. So you can talk about
Oh.
things in your marriage or in your relationship or things that go on without pointing the finger
Mhm.
at your partner and saying, "Well, our kid acts up all the time because you let him
Right.
do this." Versus saying, "I feel like I'm going to use my son as an example. I feel like Levi is really struggling
Yeah.
with following instructions right now. And I've noticed it's worse when he's allowed to spend more time in front of the TV."
Yeah. Yeah. But without saying you let him watch too
Right.
much TV.
Right. You let
Right.
him watch too much TV, or you're always telling him he can do this, or you're always telling him he can do that, or you're always on your phone, so he wants to be in front of the
Right.
TV. So let's say I admittedly am on my phone more than I probably should
Yeah,
be.
me too.
So instead of saying, well, you're always on your phone, and so I don't do XYZ because you're always on your phone,
Right.
versus saying, we spend a lot of time on our phones or on screens.
Mhm.
And when we're at home and we have time together after our kids are in bed and it's finally time that you and I could spend time together, I really want us to be connected
Right.
and engaged with each other. And if we're on our phones or we're distracted, I don't feel like we're really connecting.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a lot different than saying, if you weren't on your phone so much, our marriage wouldn't be so terrible.
Right. Right.
The next one is make and accept repair attempts.
Oh.
If
Okay,
your
elaborate.
partner is trying to repair something, don't reject it just out of principle, and I am
Right.
bad about this.
Me
Being like,
too.
"I am still mad at you because I feel like I should still be mad at you and you don't deserve forgiveness yet."
Right.
If they are attempting to make a repair, accept it,
Acknowledge it.
and you should also make attempts
Mhm.
to repair. It should not always be, "Well, he needs to apologize."
Right. And acknowledging it and accepting it does not necessarily mean that you're saying, "Okay, we're all back to normal.
Yeah.
Everything's hunky dory."
Right.
It's okay for you to be like, "Thank you so much for attempting to
Yes.
repair. Here's my effort in an attempt to repair.
Mhm.
Now,
I just need a few minutes.
I need a yeah, give me some space
Right.
and I'm appreciating you, you're appreciating me." It's one of those we love each other, but right now we don't like each other situations.
Yes. So, show the respect you expect. That's not a hard one.
It's not.
Self-explanatory. You
It's
expect
it's
it.
not a hard when you say it. Yeah,
It
yeah.
is hard to practice, and it takes practice.
A lot.
But if you expect to get it, you should be
Get it.
showing it.
Mhm.
That goes for both people. And focus on positive qualities your partner has. This kind of ties
Mm.
into my mom's piece of advice that says build a case for how great they are and then look for evidence every day.
Every day.
There's a reason you decided to get married.
Yeah.
There's a reason you decided to stay in this marriage.
And
Look
you
for those
guys have
positive
seen it
qualities.
even here. It's sometimes fun
Yeah.
to pick at your husband and to pick at your partner.
Mhm.
And sometimes on a bad day, it's really easy to nitpick the person that you're with every single day.
Mhm.
And sometimes when you're chatting with a girlfriend who's having problems with her husband, you
Mhm.
almost commiserate, just like we talked about on the
Yes.
comparison episode where we commiserate over gossip. It's like you almost commiserate over, oh, I hate when
Mhm.
my husband does that too. Here's negative about my
Right.
husband. It's easy to do.
Yes.
And there's a difference between poking fun too and just
Right.
only
Teasing.
bringing up negative aspects about your
Right.
husband.
Laughing at the goofy nuances that just aren't going to change.
Right. And if he ever said, Kelsey, it really bothers me how upset you are that I don't change the toilet paper roll,
Right.
we could talk
Then
about
it's
that.
not something we poke fun at.
But also, if he is deeply offended by the fact that I'm upset that he can't change the toilet
Right.
paper roll,
Maybe he should change it.
then yeah, maybe that's a look inside yourself situation.
Practice gratitude every day. And I feel like this one goes hand in hand
Yeah.
with focusing on the positive things. Find reasons to be grateful for your spouse, for your marriage, for your
Mhm.
relationship, the things you do together. Show affection and
Mm.
commitment. Another one that's kind of self explanatory. Not always easy to practice, especially
No.
when things are rough, but going out of your way to just show little things. I mean, something that Matt and I did a lot early in our relationship, we used to leave each other little notes. And they
Aw.
weren't like super long, but it
Yeah.
would be like a sticky note on the bathroom mirror
Yeah.
and we both still do if we're traveling for any
Yeah.
reason. We're both still pretty good about it.
Yeah. My mom and dad used to do this growing up. They
Mhm.
would do, have you heard of Schmiley?
No.
Schmiley is see how much I love you. And they would
Aw.
leave these little notes to each other. My dad would put like a little smiley piece of paper in his jean pocket. And so mom would find it when she's taking it out doing the laundry. My mom would write it on the driveway, like in chalk.
Mhm.
I mean, just cute little
I love
reminders like
that.
that. I think they got that from like a marriage retreat or
Mhm.
something, but I really enjoy that. Michael and I
Mhm.
are not so much note leavers.
Mhm.
We are texters
Mhm.
and we're butt spankers.
Yeah.
It's like if Mike just walks by and is like, "Hey,"
Yeah, that's affection.
I'm like, "Okay, we're good."
Yeah.
Or just like a hug or a touch.
Mm.
Just little
Right.
moments to connect, whether it's a smiley,
Mhm.
whether it's a little note when you're leaving for trips, whether it's a little butt spank
Mhm.
per Sarah
Yes.
Cantrell,
Right.
you know?
Whatever your affection and commitment looks like. It doesn't have to be extravagant. It doesn't
No.
have to be something that takes you half a day to put together or
No.
$1,000 to buy. It can just be little.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be this like the Notebook worthy
No.
passion. You don't have to have intimate sex on the kitchen countertop.
Right.
Yeah.
No. So one of the things Matt does that's kind of like that is when we're laying in bed and he's dozing off. We
Yeah.
usually watch some TV in bed. and he'll just kinda, like, reach his hand over, and he just lays it on my leg or my hip, depending on which
Yeah.
way I'm sitting, and it's just like a little
Yeah,
he
like
just
a
lays
little
it there.
mhm.
Like, that's he's dozing off, and it's a comfort. So,
I love that.
those little things go a long way, I
They
think,
do.
and, again, it's easy to lose sight of those and get comfortable and get kinda in your routine and let things get mundane, but just try to do those little things. Accept responsibility for your actions.
Oh,
It's a hard one. I hate
a
this one,
really hard one.
but it is necessary.
Mhm.
Own up to it. You play a part in any conflict that goes on in your marriage. Again, as a reminder, all of this advice is for people in healthy adult
Yes. Yes.
relationships. If you're in an abusive relationship, it doesn't matter how much responsibility you accept. That is not going to fix the problem. But in a healthy, productive relationship, accepting responsibility for your actions, and this should be a two-way street
Yep.
because it is not always you.
No.
And I would go as far as to say, in any argument, both of you
Yeah. Did the
scroll.
argument, both of you are hurt. So
Yes.
when there's hurt, like we've talked about in previous
Hmm.
episodes, if someone's hurt, you are responsible for that.
Yes.
Take accountability for someone for hurting someone else, whether or not
Hmm.
you feel like you hurt them or not. If they are hurt, you should be apologetic and you should understand that you hurt them.
Yes. Share the load with your partner.
That's a really important one.
Yes. So make sure it's not all one sided. Marriage is hard on everybody. It takes effort from both parties. You can't shoulder the success or failure of your
No.
marriage on your partner. You've got to share the load. Both
Yep.
of you have to lift.
And I would say that, that inequality and sharing the load is the fastest track to resentment
Mhm.
to one of our four dark
Oh, for
horsemen.
sure.
Like when I am overwhelmed at home or Michael's been gone on a work trip, that resentment can build up so fast
Mhm.
in a 1 day span of,
Yes.
I've done everything today. What?
Mhm.
And Michael is very equal, 50-50. But that is how quick that resentment can build,
Mhm.
is just from that little inequality in sharing the workload.
Mhm.
So it's a thing that you have to constantly be aware of and
Mhm.
not necessarily doing tit for tat, but just doing your part
Yes.
will help.
Yes. And that may look different for different people.
Right.
So, communicate about it. Decide what sharing the load in your relationship looks like. What expectations do we have as a couple
Yep.
for what my responsibilities are, what your responsibilities are, and we help each other
Yep.
as we can. But, like at our house, I do the laundry.
Mm-hmm.
That is my thing. The way Matt does it drives me crazy. The way he folds towels,
Mm.
they don't fit in the cabinet as well. And so that is one of those things that for a long time, it was like I would gripe
Yeah.
about him not helping with the laundry.
Yeah.
Then he would help with the laundry, then I would gripe about the way he did the laundry.
Yep. Yep.
So, that was a conversation we had to work through that
Right.
seems trivial, but if it's constantly causing conflict,
Yep.
okay, we've got to come up with a solution. The solution is I am going to do all the laundry. In exchange, for me not to feel overwhelmed,
Mm-hmm.
I need you to do
Dishes.
these other things
Right.
and to be the primary person who's taking care of that.
Right.
Learn how to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a hard one.
Oh,
There
it's
is a
such a hard
difference
one.
between hearing
Mm-hmm.
and listening, and you could do a whole episode on listening.
We should do an episode on how to be an active listener.
Yes. The reason the I statements that marriage counselors encourage you to do
Mm-hmm.
is to demonstrate that you are actively listening
Right.
to your partner and you're not just spitting out exactly what that person just said.
Yep.
That's hearing.
Yep.
Did you listen in a way that you are comprehending and you are paying attention to what they are telling you with your statement?
Michael and I have been in marriage counseling for years.
Yes.
Every year of our marriage.
Mhm.
Every year of our relationship. So
Right.
that's been 7 years now of us
Mhm.
being in therapy. And that is still something that is brought up in every
Mhm.
single session on just learning how to be fully aware of what your partner is saying, sometimes without them directly
Yes.
saying it. Just learning how to actively listen and take cues and
Mhm.
nonverbal cues. I mean, listening, like we just said, is worthy of an entire episode because it's so much more complicated than what
Oh
you
yeah.
think of by just
It
hearing.
sounds like it would be straightforward, like learn to listen.
Mhm.
Oh, I listen all the time.
Right.
I listen to her nagging every day. Yeah.
Oh, that's a phrase that makes me wanna die.
So, it does take practice. Make intentional changes in behavior. It takes you really being aware of your own actions and changing, even if it's mid-action,
Right.
going, "You know what? I shouldn't have reacted that
Yeah.
way." That is an intentional change in behavior.
Yeah. So an example of that too, just like a more personal example, is when Michael and I first would fight,
Mhm.
we would get ugly,
Mhm.
right? We would say horrible, hurtful things. We'd go in on each other. We'd talk about families, anything like
Mhm.
that. It doesn't matter. And so one of our red lines, my parents actually are the ones that did this in their marriage. And I learned from that our red lines were we no longer bring up the word divorce
Mhm.
because it's simply not an option.
Right.
We don't ever insult our character.
Mhm.
So if I say something like, I'm so angry at the way that you did this, I can say that. I can say, this is why you've hurt me. Here's
Mhm.
what's happened. But you saying, you're so stupid. You're such a
Right. You're
loser.
such a jerk.
Yeah, you're such a liar. It's like,
Right.
no, that's going for your character.
Mhm.
And you're in love with this person
Because of their
because of their
character.
character.
Right.
So we're not just going to say words that are going to hurt them deeper when you
Mhm.
can just say, here's why I'm upset. Here's what you did to upset me.
Ab
So creating those red lines and being able mid sentence to go, oh, shoot, that was a
Yeah.
red
I'm
line.
sorry. That
I'm
was over the
sorry.
line. Absolutely. So, some of these other ones, again, should be self-explanatory, not that they're as simple as just reading them off a page,
Right.
but stopping and taking a break.
Yep.
If we're arguing, we're not coming to a resolution, take a break. Come to it later. Sometimes you walk away and you're like, "That was stupid. We don't need to revisit that."
Yeah. Let's pretend that never happened.
Right. Improve your communication. Go to therapy. Talk to people who have good communication, who can give you wise counsel or be there for you as a positive. Somebody who can sit with you and go, Kelsey, I get where you're coming from,
Hmm.
but from what you've described to me, it sounds like you also kind of came out hot. You were mad. I've done the same thing.
Right.
In the future, I think if you make this little tweak and you try to approach it this way, you might get further
Yeah.
and Michael might be more receptive to having that conversation. Having people who are willing to be honest with you, even if it risks maybe hurting your feelings a little bit until you can go, well, she was right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I will also say do not seek marital advice from the opposite sex, short of it
Oh,
being your dad, your pastor, someone like that. Never a good idea,
don't
and
even
vice versa.
open that.
So I like these last two.
Hmm.
The first one is focus on self soothing. And when I first read this, I was like, we read about that
You
in the
think about a
sleep book
baby.
we did
Yeah.
for Levi. But when you think about it for a second, you could interchange this with self regulate.
Right.
Learn to recognize I am getting very upset about this and whatever it is you need to do.
Yeah.
If it's saying, I can't talk about this right now, I am really getting upset and I just need a minute. Or if it's just sitting there taking some deep breaths, doing whatever the exercise is that you need to do to just kind of bring everything back
Yeah.
to center.
So you know that I have specialized in my work over
Mhm.
the last few years on behavioral intervention. And it's really fascinating because we need self soothing skills as much as we did when we were a newborn
Mhm.
baby. A more adult term, I guess, would be coping skills.
Uh-huh.
What are your skills that have helped you learn how to cope? With my daughter, we have in her playroom a calming corner. So when she
Cute.
gets incredibly overworked, we let her go to her calming corner. There's one little basket. In that basket, there's a book, there's a musical instrument, there's pictures, there's markers. So sensory wise, you kind of pick what you need to help
Right.
you calm down. As adults, we need to create our own calming corner.
Mhm.
You regulating and calming down and coping is something that we've really been lucky in our generation to be
Mhm.
aware of, that previous generations didn't know
Mhm.
how to go about doing
And it
that.
was so stigmatized to
Right.
admit that you might need that. Like, you're an adult, you should just be able to deal with it.
Right.
Oh, Matt got me a weighted blanket
Oh,
for
yeah.
Christmas a couple years ago. I've struggled with anxiety on and off since my like preteen years.
Right.
So, a couple Christmases ago, he surprised me with a weighted blanket. And if I am in a state where I am overwhelmed and I'm like, you know what, I am so anxious, like I'm literally almost trembling.
Yep.
that weighted blanket, it's like getting a hug,
Yes.
and it puts enough pressure across my body that I can fall asleep and
Mhm.
just kinda clear my mind and let things go. If you're struggling with anxiety, talk to a professional, talk to your doctor.
Mhm.
I am not in any form or fashion saying a weighted blanket is gonna solve all your problems.
Throw the meds away, ladies.
Right, but there are circumstances where medication or therapy or other tools are better suited to
Yes.
resolve what you're going through, but a weighted blanket might be a tool in your toolbox. So, the last one is turn toward your partner.
Oh.
80 or 90% of communication is nonverbal,
Yes.
and if you're in an argument with your partner and they're not facing you or
Yeah.
they're closed off or
Or
they're
they're
turned,
looking at
even
their
if you're sitting,
phone.
I mean,
Mhm.
be engaged in the conversation. Conflict is uncomfortable. Nobody enjoys sitting there talking through something that's difficult. But turn and face your partner,
Yep.
have an open dialogue. And again, we're
Mhm.
all human. You're going to have a bad day that your spouse says something that just sends you through the roof
Right.
and you react in a way, but recognizing that even if it's later or the next day,
Mhm.
acknowledging it, apologizing, taking responsibility for your actions can go a long way
Yeah.
in making sure you're repairing those damages as quickly as possible
Right.
after. So, with all that said, men, statistically speaking, let's work on the stonewalling,
Mhm.
work on acknowledging what you're doing and asking for a break
Yeah.
or communicating that you need one. And women, let's really work on taking the opportunity to disengage
Yes.
when we see that things are getting heated, when we see that our husbands are getting flustered and aggravated, and we're getting flustered and aggravated, and we're starting that same old routine where we're following them from room to room to room, trying to get the resolution we need.
Mhm.
Let's just pull back. It's better for our health, it's better for our marriage, and we will all be better for it.
Amen.
Same here. I mean, I am as guilty as the next person, but
It's yeah.
after reading these studies, something I am definitely gonna work on
It
more.
did light a bit of a fire under my toe. Now, let's get into my favorite part, and I've been deprived because we didn't do it last week.
I know.
So I'm thankful we get to round this baby out. Kayla, do you know what I've been deprived of?
Have you been deprived of wine and wine?
It's wine and wine, baby. Play that jingle.
Our wine and wine today is brought to you by the men we share children with.
Amen. Didn't have to look too far for that one.
Our lovely husbands, Matt and Michael. And keeping with the theme of marriage, we wanted to insert some funny wines
True. Yeah.
about the men in our lives. Like we mentioned earlier, sometimes it's fun just to poke fun.
Yeah.
But before we jump into that, let's talk about what's in our cups today. You'll see we got our fancy glasses because Kayla lost one of the mugs. Today, we are drinking mom water. And guys, these are
They're
hysterical.
so fun.
They have mom names. So mine is Karen.
And mine is Sandy.
Yes. So mine's lemon blueberry flavored. And these are fruit infused water and vodka. So they are not carbonated. It is just a vodka and water
Yep.
with some light fruit flavoring. So
Yeah.
Karen is lemon blueberry, and what is Sandy?
Sandy is coconut mango.
The
Okay,
names
okay,
are
okay.
awesome. The fact that they are all mom names, but moms from like our generation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Linda, Karen, Sandy,
Teresa.
Susan.
Yes.
So they are
What would you
hilarious
give it?
on their own. I think they're pretty good.
Mhm.
I kinda when I bought them, I expected a seltzery kinda
Yeah.
thing, but I like that they don't have
Mm-mm.
the
It's an
carbonation.
easy
It's
drink.
a different kind of
It's smooth. You know, like the water. I don't know if any of you guys have ever been to Jenny's Ice Cream in Central Weston in
mm-mm.
St. Louis, but there's an ice cream place called Jenny's, and they always have this cucumber
Yes.
water, and it's like that.
Yeah, it
Just
is.
kind of refreshing.
Mhm.
nice water.
They're
I'd
just
say
kinda
I'd
laid
rate
back.
this baby like a 9.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with
It
it.
was
It
good.
was a solid 8 or 9. I like
Yeah.
it.
Would drink again.
Yes, we will. And so, without further ado,
Mhm.
let's get into our wines.
Alrighty. So we could sit here all day and talk about how the socks get left out, the little pee dribbles on the toilet seats, right? I mean, it's so frustrating.
Yes.
Like, I could be here all night about that.
Can we get a collective, "Oh my god, yes."
Oh my God, yes, for me.
Right.
So this one is infuriating because my husband and my father both do this. They like to lay on the couch and they watch videos, TikTok, Facebook,
Mhm.
whatever. Volume loud, baby.
On 10.
Volume on 10, laughing to themselves, like no care in the world that there are children trying to sleep.
Mhm.
There is a TV show already on the TV.
Yes. Oh
You
my
call
god, the
that.
overstimulation women experience from the
Oh,
TV, man's cell phone, the exhaust fan on the stove being on, and your kids running around
so
screaming in the
much.
background just makes my skin crawl
To
sometimes.
add to this, Michael has to have music on anywhere
All
he
the time.
is. Yes. If he's in a room, he's going to turn music on the Alexa and then forget to turn music off on the other ones,
Oh no.
all while watching his TikTok videos on a level 10 while I'm trying to watch a TV show. Or even better, he'll just throw one on
Right.
because why not? And then you've got the kids on their iPads.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, my wine is just literally the amount of sound that one man can produce,
Mhm.
can enjoy all at the same time.
But ignore all of it.
Yes, be able to just go, I'm watching this video. I'm
And
going to
that's the
focus on
only
this
thing I
video.
hear.
I'm not going to listen to random Motown from from the bathroom. I'm not going to listen to Let It Go from our
Mhm.
girls' room. I'm able to focus on this one video.
Yes.
All while that's happening, while he's sitting there smiling, joyously looking at his phone with every sound on the planet, I am 2 steps away from an aneurysm,
Yes.
sweating.
Right.
So, yeah, that's my
Yeah.
wine, and I hope that, Michael listens to this, and I'm not asking for a lot here. I'm asking for
Right.
1 Alexa, one of our 3,
Right.
to be turned off,
Mhm.
and then maybe we'll take little baby steps from there.
Oh yeah. Matt does the same thing. His are jujitsu videos.
Oh, yeah,
Always.
yeah.
But the exhaust fan for me is always like the proverbial
Oh,
straw that broke the camel's back. I don't use the exhaust fan a lot when I cook
yeah,
unless it's something that really produces a lot of
right,
steam or
of steam,
smell.
yeah.
He uses it for everything he cooks. And if
Why? Is it
I'm
like a
cooking,
comfort?
he will turn it on. And
Mm.
so it'll be the same thing. Like he's sitting there watching jujitsu videos, Levi's playing, the TV's on, music is playing on
Yes,
Alexa, and then he comes and flips the exhaust fan on. And that's always like, for whatever reason, that exhaust fan
it's
is
it.
just like the tipping point.
No, you're right. Because
And
then
so
when it turns
then I have
off,
then everything has to turn off.
yeah,
There can be no sound once that threshold has been
yep,
passed. Done. Turn all the sound off. I need Levi to go in his room and not make a peep for
yep.
like 5 minutes
I
because I
know.
cannot do it anymore.
Poor Juniper. Like all she has to do is come out and be like, "Mom, can I have a snack?" And I'm like, "No."
Yes. Mine this week about my lovely husband is that if I have to turn one more piece of clothing
Mm, I already know where you're
right
going.
side out,
Yep.
it is like the man gets raptured out of his clothes every time he takes a shower. There are
It's so
socks and
true.
underwear stuck inside pants because it all just comes off.
Yep.
But then the socks don't come off
The
right
pants.
side out.
Oh.
They're always like, so, a sock is shaped like this. It's
Hmm.
like the toe and then everything just accordions. And
Yes.
so it's like this little wadded up ball of sock or completely inside out because he grabs it at the top and rips it off his foot.
Right.
Socks are like the world's worst thing to turn right side out. The inside out laundry has been an ongoing battle
Right.
in our marriage, but in my infinite wisdom,
Hmm.
did come up with a somewhat viable solution depending on your husband. Like, make sure you know your husband's sense of humor.
Right.
before you do this. But I just started washing it and drying it, hanging it up, and putting it away inside out. Like, I swear to you, at some point, 60% of his clothes were inside out on the
Did
hanger,
he notice this or no?
and he was having to turn them right side out before he
Put him
put
on?
them on. So, he has gotten better. Message received.
Yes.
He's a fast learner. There are some things that still get turned inside out, and now, it doesn't bother me so much to just do it. Unless it gets like every once in a while, I'll just have to give a gentle reminder.
Complaining without blaming.
Yes. Yes.
I understand it must have been a hard day.
Right. Will
For you to
please change-
completely flip your socks
I
inside
can see
out.
that you have completely lost your mind. But no, it has gotten to where I can say things like, hey, it really does save me a lot of time.
Yeah.
If the clothes are right side out, can you please make sure you're turning them right side out?
Well, I'm so glad we got to wine and wine because
Me too.
a week of not doing that, I just had more to bring up to my therapist. So
takes a toll on your mental health.
it does. Thank you guys for listening to us today. Thank you for always supporting us and getting us out of our rut.
Mm-hmm.
It did feel good just to be here and
It
chat. So give us a like, give us a share, give us a rating, and give us a download. And we'd love to just keep this thing going and keep connecting and learning more alongside you guys. So tune in for our episode next Wednesday at 5 a.m. Central Standard Time.
Yes. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And we can't wait to hear your thoughts on this episode and many more.
Bye, guys.
This episode of the Undomesticated podcast was filmed on site at South Fork Showroom in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. South Fork is the one-stop shop for all your home decor needs, including lighting, custom made-in-America furniture, wall art, and more. Visit South Fork today by dropping by a showroom in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, or Paducah, Kentucky, and online at southforklighting.net. As a reminder, all opinions and views shared on the show are solely those of Kelsey and Kayla and do not represent opinions or values of the organizations we work for or represent, our filming locations, our guests, or the family and friends in our lives. Artwork for the Undomesticated podcast was created by Megan Justice. The Undomesticated theme music is Beach Day in Boston by Sarah the Instrumentalist, and the theme for Wine and Wine is Follow Every Move by Radio Night. The Undomesticated podcast is produced, edited, and published by Undomesticated LLC. For more information about the podcast and your hosts, visit www.undomesticatedpod.com.
The research in this episode pertained to heterosexual male-female relationships. We have attached research regarding same-sex relationships in our show notes to reference if the topics discussed did not feel applicable to your current relationship. It's important to us that our podcast remains an open and safe environment for every woman or man who listen. Thank you for trusting us, and thank you for listening. We'll see you guys next week.